What is up? My name is Teddy. I'm a level 1 judge here in Bremen, Germany, and I'm super excited to bring you some more Canadian Highlander gameplay. Before we jump into the games, just a quick note on the playtest cards we're allowing our players to use. Each player can use up to 20 playtest cards for their decks in our unsanctioned tournaments. What matters to us is that we only use really magic cards and don't allow any fake proxies from Wish or anywhere else. And that everybody involved in the game knows which card we are talking about, as you can see in the image. And another thing before we jump into the games, we are really trying to upgrade our camera setup, but in this episode there are some sequences that are a little bit blurry. We are really sorry for that, but if you skip like 30 seconds ahead it will probably be fine again. We hope you can enjoy the video nonetheless and have fun! Nika's opening hand contains Inquisition of Kozilek, Basic Plains, Fatal Push, Lightning Helix, a Braid, a Nurse and a Survey Triumph. Mario's starting hand contains an Infernal Harvest, Morgus Marauder, 2 basic swamps, an Ancient Tomb, a Bajuka Bog, and a Force of Despair. Nika starts the first game of the evening with a tapped Savai Triumph and passes to Mario. Mario plays a basic swamp and casts the Thoughtseize that he drew for turn. Nika reveals their hand. Mario thinking what to choose here. He goes for the Lightning Helix and passes back to Nika. Nika untaps, draws. They tap the Triumph for black and cast an Inquisition of Kozilek. Mario reveals his hand. Nika chooses the Infernal Harvest. Playing a basic Plains as the land for turn and pass back to Mario. Mario draws. He placed the wasteland he drew for turn to destroy the tapped Triumph and pass back to Nika. Nika drew a Blackleaf Cliffs and plays a Dark Confidant, passing back to Mario. Mario uses his Ancient Tomb, losing 2 life, to cast a Morgus Marauder, passing back to Nika. Nika reveals for the Dark Confidant trigger, it's a basic Plains. They then draw another card. Playing another Plains. They are then going to cast a Dreadhorde Arcanist. And passing back to Mario. Mario untaps, draws for turn, playing another basic Swamp for turn. He swings in with the Marcus Marauder, and Nika takes 2. Mario's then going to pay 2 life to use his Ancient Tomb to cast a Ren Way Commander, losing another 3 life, going down to 11. He passes back to Nika. Nika reveals for the Dark Confident trigger. It's an Ashiok, so Nika loses 3 life, going down to 15. Nika then casts an Abrade, destroying the Way Commander, and attacks with their Dark Confident and Dreadhorde Arcanist. With the Arcanist trigger, the Inquisition is cast, and Nika chooses the Force of Despair in Mario's hand. Mario then takes the damage, goes down to 8. And in the second main phase, Nika uses her Wasteland to blow up the Ancient Tomb. Mario untaps, draws, and plays a Bazooka Bug to exile Nika's graveyard. Mario delves away 4 cards to cast a Soul Flare. He then passes back to Nika. Nika's Dark Confident triggers in their upkeep, and Nika reveals an Agadeem's Awakening, which is a new modal double-faced card from Zendikar Rising. So this is one of the playtest cards we allow our players to use, and both players are just making sure that they know which card they are talking about. That's why Mario is using his phone. The card then goes to Nika's hand. They draw. Nika uses the backside of the card, paying 3 life, so the land is not entering the battlefield tapped. And then they cast an Ashiok Dream Render. They use it to mill themselves, which will also exile Mario's graveyard. Back to Mario. Mario untaps and attacks with both of his creatures. Nika jumps the Soul Flare with their Dark Confidant. And the Marauder still dealing 2 damage to the Ashok. Mario then casts a Vampire Lacerator. Nika untaps, draws. Nika is using Ashok's ability again to mill 4 cards. Nika is casting Unearth, targeting the Lurus. And with the Lurus ability, casting a Mox Jet from the graveyard. For 1 black mana, Nika uses the Fatal Push to kill the Vampire Lacerator. And then casts a Lightning Bolt targeting the Soul Flare. The Dreadhorde against attacks, and Nika uses the ability to cast Lightning Bolt once again, targeting the Soul Flare to ultimately kill it. Mario then takes 1 damage from the Arcanist, and Nika passes back to Mario. Mario attacks with the Marauder. Nika declares no blocks. And Mario follows it up with the Carrier Net. Nika draws. Casting a Collective Brutality, discarding a card for the Escalade, killing the Carrier Net, and draining Mario for 2. Nika then moves to combat, attacks with the Arcanist and Lurus, and recasts the Fog Bolt to win game 1. For game number 2, Nika's starting hand contains a Castle Loch Twain,
Badlands, Titolo Scholar, Field of Ruins, Plains, Hymn to Turok, and the Marsh Flats. Mario's opening hand contains a swamp, a snow-covered swamp, another swamp, a dismember, Mox Diamond, Carrion Feeder, and a Dog Confident. Mario starts game number 2, casting a Mox Diamond, discarding a swamp. Plays a swamp as his land for turn and casts a Dark Confident. Nika draws. Nika plays a Marsh Flats as their land for turn and passes back to Mario. In his upkeep, Mario reveals a Plague Engineer, losing 3 life, and then draws for turn. Mario goes to combat, swings in with the Dark Confident. Nika is going down to 18. And in his second main phase, Mario casts a Giraffe's Messenger, which will make Nika lose another 2 life. End of turn, Nika fetches up a Savai Triumph. Nika untaps, draws. They are then playing a Scrubland as their land for turn. Following up with the Hymn to Turok. Mario will discard 2 cards at random. The first one is a Carrion Feeder. And the second one is the Plague Engineer that Nika already knew of. Mario untaps, reveals a card for the Dark Confident trigger. Mario attacks, bringing Nika down to 10 life. And for 3 mana, Mario casts the by Strike Force that he revealed of the Dark Confident. Passing back to Nika. Nika plays a Castle Log Twain as their land for turn. Following up with the Fulminator Mage. And passing back to Mario. Mario reveals a Force of Despair, losing another 3 life, and then drawing for turn. Mario untaps, and casts a Hymn to Turok of his own. Nika discards a Titler Scholar and an Unearth. Mario pays another 2 life to cast a Dismember, destroying the Fulminator Mage. And then swings in with everything, bringing Nika down to 3 life. Nika untaps, draws. And they decide that they can't do anything about Mario's board. Nika's starting hand for the last round contains an Inspiring Vantage, Isolated Chapel, Unearth, Rick's Muddy Reveler, Lurus, Collective Brutality, and Determinate. Mario's starting hand contains a Mongoose Marauder, a Swamp, a Sol Ring, a Snow-Covered Swamp, and a Pulse Tracker. Sorry for the bad quality of the image. Nika starts their first turn with an Isolated Chapel tapped, and passes turn to Mario. Mario casts a Pulse Tracker and shifts the turn to Nika. Nika untaps, draws. They are playing an Inspiring Vantage and a Rick's Muddy Reveler without the Spectacle cost. Nika discards an Elspeth, drawing another card and passing back to Mario. Mario plays a Swamp, casts a Sol Ring, and casts a Wise Strike Force again. Nika untaps, draws. Nika casts a Collective Brutality, paying the Escalate cost, discarding a Lurus to kill the Strike Force. Mario reveals his hand and has to discard a Hero's Downfall. Nika passes back to Mario. Mario untaps, draws. He then casts a Mongoose Marauder on ETB, giving both of his creatures Intimidate and Haste, and swings in for 3, dealing 1 damage with the Pulse Tracker trigger. He's giving the turn back to Nika. Nika untaps, playing a Windswept Heath. Nika cracks the fetch land, going down to 15. Fetching up a scrubland. Nika then casts Unearth, targeting the Lurus once more. Nika gives the turn back to Mario. Mario untaps. Mario is paying 2 life to cast a Phyrexian Metamorph, which will enter the battlefield as a copy of the Rix Mardi Reveler. Mario discards a Changeling from his hand, and then moves to combat with both of his creatures. At least he's thinking about it. And he decides to go for it. Pulse Tracker dealing 1 damage with his trigger. Nika blocks and gains 3 life due to Lurus lifelink. So Nika's at 17. At end of turn, Nika casts a Lightning Helix, destroying the Phyrexian Metamorph, gaining another 3 life, and goes into their turn. Nika plays in Ashok again, milling themselves. Exiling Mario's graveyard with Ashok's ability, and attacks with Lurus. Mario goes to his turn. He then casts a Urk Raiders. And pass back to Nika. Nika draws. Directly goes to downtick the Ashok, milling themselves for another 4. They are then going to cast a Pithing Needle, targeting the Soul Ring, which does not quite work, but nonetheless, it's a legal target. Nika plays a Blood Crypt tapped, and then casts a Terminate to kill the Urk Raiders. Lurus is then going to connect with Mario. Mario goes down to 12. Nika up to 26. Mario gives the turn back to Nika, using the Ashok again. Nika casts a young Pyromancer from the graveyard. And then Lurrus is going to swing in for another 3 damage. Nika passes back to Mario. Mario plays an Urborg. And then he's going to cast a Blood Scrivener. He passes back to Nika. Nika decides to mill 4 again. They will cast a Mox Pearl due to Lurrus' ability from the graveyard. Then they are going to cast Dreadbore on Mario's creature. Young Pyromancer is going to trigger. Nika's creating a 1/1 elemental token. And then they are going to swing in with the Young Pyromancer and the Lurrus. Nika flashes back Lingering Souls from the graveyard, creating 2 spirit tokens and another elemental token due to Young Pyromancer's ability. Mario draws and scoops it up. So round number 1 goes to Nika on Mardu Aggro. See you in round number 2. In round number 2 we have Maxi holding a Life from the Loam, Dark Confidant, Maelstrom Pulse, Bayou, and a Bloodstained Mire with their giant midrange deck. His opponent Sven is going to keep a Thoughtseize, Gemstone Mine, Snow-Covered Island, Gifts Ungiven, and a Thought Erasure. Sven starts the match playing a Gemstone Mine, using it to cast a Thoughtseize. Maxi reveals his hand. And he chooses the Dark Confidant. Maxi goes to his turn, draws, plays a Bloodstained Mire, and passes back to Sven. Sven untaps, draws, and plays a Snow-Covered Island as his land for turn. He then taps the Gemstone Mine for black mana to cast a Thought Erasure. Maxi reveals a Pernicious Deed as the only unknown card to Sven. And Sven chooses the Life from the Loam. He surveils 1. Leaving the card on top, and passes to Maxi. End of turn, Maxi is going to crack the Bloodstained Mire, going down to 19. He's finding a Stomping Ground, which will enter play tapped. In his draw step, Maxi decides to replace his draw with a dredge 3 from Life from the Loam, milling himself for 3, including a strip mine, which is represented by a playtest card. Maxi then plays Life from the Loam, returning 3 lands back to his hand, and then passes back to Sven. Sven draws. He casts a sleight of hand. He's passing back to Maxi. Maxi decides once again to dredge Life from the Loam, milling himself for 3 cards. He will then play the Strip Mine as his land for turn to blow up the snow-covered island. Follow up with the Life from the Loam, returning Strip Mine and another land to his hand, and passing back to Sven. Sven draws, and he decides that he just can't get out of this Strip Mine lock. Maxi's starting hand for game number 2 contains a Copperline Gorge, Elves of Deep Shadow, Deathray Shaman, Rootbound Crag, Thespian Stage, Growth of the Burn Willow, and Toxic Deluge. Sven's starting hand contains a Agonizing Remorse, Intuition, a Breakthrough, City of Brass, 2 basic lands, and an Underground Sea. Sven leads with an Underground Sea, passes to Maxi. Maxi plays a Bayou and follows it up with a Deathray Shaman. On Sven's turn, he draws, plays a basic island as his land for turn, and casts an Agonizing Remorse. Maxi reveals his hand. The only legal targets are the Elves of Deep Shadow and the Toxic Deluge. So Sven decides to exile the elf, loses 1 life, and then passes back to Maxi. Maxi untaps, draws. He plays a Rootbound Crag as his land for turn. And passes back to Sven. Sven untaps, draws. Plays a City of Brass as the land for turn, dealing 1 damage to himself to cast a Gamble. He will now discard a card at random. And unfortunately, it's the card he tutored for. At the end of Sven's turn, Maxi exiles the Thassa's Oracle that was discarded with his Deathrite Shaman to gain 2 life. Maxi's then going to play a Copperline Gorge as his land for turn, casting a Fork Bolt to deal 2 damage to Sven, and pass back the turn. Still end of turn, Sven casts a Tainted Pact. And the first card he revealed was the one he was looking for. Sven then untaps, draws a card for turn, plays a Steam Vents tapped. At the end of turn, Maxi is going to exile the Gamble, dealing 2 damage to Sven with his Deathrite Shaman. Maxi then draws, plays a Thespian Stage as his land for turn, and pass back to Sven. At end of his turn, Sven casts a Intuition. Sven reveals a Lionside Diamond, a Brain Freeze, and a Wheel of Fortune. Maxi decides to give Sven the Wheel of Fortune. Sven untaps, and in Sven's upkeep, Maxi is going to exile the Brain Freeze with his Deathrite Shaman, bringing Sven down to 12 life. Sven draws for turn. Plays a swamp. For 2 mana, Sven casts the Underworld Breach. He's then going to cast, paying 1 life for City of Brass, going to cast a Wheel of Fortune. So both players discard their hand. Sven is going to fuel his graveyard. And Maxi really needs to find an answer here. Otherwise, Sven's combo is pretty much complete here. Sven is then going to recast the Lionside Diamond from his graveyard, exiling 3 cards as an additional cost. He will then crack the Lionside Diamond for 3 red mana, discarding his hand to recast the Wheel of Fortune. So this will fill up Sven's graveyard every time he does that. And even though the Brain Freeze line is already gone, Sven has other ways to kill Maxi with another combo here. So both players draw another 7. Maxi did not find a way to handle Sven's graveyard. Which will allow Sven to continue with this loop. So Maxi scoops it up, and this game goes to Sven. Maxi's opening hand for the last game contains a Badland, Kozilek's Inquisition, Snow-Covered Forest, Collector Roof, Life from the Loam, and the Wooded Foothills. Sven's opening hand contains a Inquisition of Kozilek, Ponder, Demonic Tutor, Prismatic Prism, City of Brass, Sulphur Falls, and a Steamvent. Maxi leads with his Badlands and casts an Inquisition of Kozilek. Sven reveals his hand. And Maxi decides to take Sven's Inquisition at this point. Sven goes to his turn. Plays his Scalding Tarn as his land for turn. Cracks it immediately. He searches up an underground sea and casts a Ponder. Once again, sorry for the blurriness of some part of this video. We really don't know what happened to the focus this time, but we will promise to make sure this won't happen again. Sven's Ponder resolves. He looks at the top 3 cards of his library and decides he's going to shuffle. He will then draw a card, but he passed the turn back to Maxi. Maxi plays a snow-covered forest and follows it up with a collector oof, which will stop Sven's Lion-Side Diamond combo. Such a hateful card to all artifact decks. So Sven draws for his Ponder, untaps, and goes into his turn. He draws for turn, plays his Sulfur Falls, and then he casts his Demonic Tutor. What happened here? Sven gave the turn back to Maxi. Maxi attacked with the Collector Oof. So Sven goes down to 17. Maxi plays a Wooded Foothills as his land for turn, going down to 19. Sorry for that awkward cut there. Maxi searches up a bayou. And cast a Tarmogoyf. Sven untaps, draws. Plays a basic island as his land for turn. Uses 1 red to kill the Collector Oof with a lightning bolt. And then casts a Pentad Prism with a Sunburst count of 2. He then passes back to Maxi. Maxi untaps, draws. He casts a Life from the Loam. getting back his Wooded Foothills, playing his Wooded Foothills, and then goes to combat. The Tarmogoyf's power is at 4 at the moment, so Sven goes down to 13. And then Maxi passes back to Sven. Sven untaps, draws. He plays a Gemstone mine as his land for turn. For 4 mana, Sven casts a Breakthrough X equals 3. So he draws 4 cards, chooses 3 cards, and discards the rest. Sven discards 3 lands and an Arms Chant. And at the end of Sven's turn, Maxi is going to crack his Wooded Foothills. He finds a Stomping Ground which will enter the battlefield tapped. And then Maxi is going into his turn. He untaps, draws, deciding not to dredge here. He goes to combat, swings in with the Tarmogoyf. Both players check in if the size of the Goyf is still the same, and then Sven goes down to 9. And for 3 mana, Maxi casts a Clothes, which is pretty good graveyard hate against Sven at this point. Maxi passes back to Sven, who untaps, draws. For 3 mana, he transmutes a Muddle the Mixture, tutoring up a card with CMC 2, which is a Underworld Breach. Sven is then casting a Chromatic Sphere, setting up for a combo turn. And he passes back to Maxi. Maxi decides not to dredge, and in his pre-combat main phase, closes triggers. And he exiles the demonic tutor in Sven's graveyard. He's then going to swing in with the Tarmogoyf, bringing Sven down to 3 life, and follows it up with a Grim Lavamancer. So this is probably Sven's last turn. Filtering his island with the Chromatic Sphere into a red, drawing a card, and then casting a Underworld Breach. In response, Maxi casts a crop rotation, sacrificing his forest. And I'm pretty sure I know what he's getting there. Yep, it's a Bazooka Bog, which will exile Sven's whole graveyard on EDB. This is such a disruptive line. This is so good for Maxi at this point. So Sven's whole graveyard is gone. For 3 mana, using 2 of these Sunburst counter, Sven costs a Wheel of Fortune. Maxi has no response. This is so dangerous for Sven. If Maxi finds another burn spell, Sven finds a land, cracks the Mist Rainforest, going down to 2, even lower. So if Maxi drew a shock, this might kill Sven. Sven fetches up a Tundra. He casts a Chromox, imprinting a Limdul's Vault. So the Mox taps for blue and black. He's following it with a Rain of Filth. He sacrifices 3 lands to make 3 black mana. This is so impressive, considering the line that Maxi just took by exiling Sven's graveyard. But Sven is still digging deeper, hoping to find an answer. Or to find a win, to be more specific at this point. Sven is using his 3 floating black mana in the blue to cast a Gifts Ungiven. Which means this is probably enough to kill Maxi. Sven's searching for a Brain Freeze, Lights-Eye Diamond. He's also finding a Lotus Petal. And a Thassa's Oracle. Maxi decides to put the 2 artifacts to the graveyard, giving Sven the Brain Freeze and Thassa's Oracle to hand. Sven is then going to cast a Lights-Eye Diamond from his graveyard, exiling 3 lands. He now is explaining a loop, which does not involve the Wheel of Fortune. So Maxi has probably no chance to draw into another burn spell. So Sven makes a blue mana with his Gemstone Cavern, cracks it with the Rain of Fields for another black, casts a Brain Freeze targeting himself. With the Storm count he generated so far, he will mill 21 cards. He is able to do this over and over again due to the Lights-Eye Diamond. And eventually the Storm count will be big enough to either kill Maxi or mill Sven's whole library, and he only has to cast Thassa's Oracle to win him the game. So round number 2 goes to Sven on Thassa's Breach Storm. Maxi is looking if the next wheel would have gotten him the burn spell, and yes, it would. The next Wheel of Fortune would have killed Sven. Jörn's opening hand for round number 3 contains a Miscalculation, Marsh Flats, Lightning Helix, Mountain Abrade, and a True Name Nemesis. Philip's starting hand contains a Scrubland, Windswept Heath, Fatal Push, Dig Through Time, Vendilion Clique, Glacial Fortress, and Spell Snare. Jörn starts the match playing a Marsh Flats and pathing to Philip. Philip plays a Windswept Heath, and Jörn decides to crack the land, his fetch land at end step. Finding a Cassia, a Rogrin Triumph. He then goes to his turn, draws, playing a mountain, and passing back to Philip. In Jörn's end step, Philip goes down to 19, cracking his Windswept Heath. He tutors up a Howled Fountain, which will end the battlefield tapped. And he will then go to his turn. He untaps, draws. He plays a Glacial Fortress as land for turn, tapping it for blue to cast a Ponder. The Ponder resolves. Philip looks at the top 3 cards of his library. He decides to shuffle. He draws a card of the Ponder. He then casts a Mox Diamond. Pitching a Watery Grave. And I think he's passing back to Jörn. But in his end step, Jörn cycles a Miscalculation. Jörn draws for turn. He plays a Windswept Heath, follows it up with a Gitaxian Probe, paying 2 life for the spell. He then draws a card, cracks his Windswept Heath, going down to 16. He searches up a Tundra. And for 3 mana, casts a True Name Nemesis, naming Philip as it enters. Philip draws for his turn. He places Scrubland and passes back to Jörn. Jörn draws. He goes to combat, attacks Philip with the True Name Nemesis, so Philip goes down to 16, and then Jörn passes back the turn. The end of Jörn's turn, Philip flashes in the Vendilion Clique that Jörn knew about. And Jörn cast a Mana Leak in response, so Philip either repays 3 or this spell is countered. Philip tries to counter the spell with a Spell Snare. And Jörn casts a Ancestral Recall in response, drawing 3 cards. The Spell Snare is then going to resolve, and Vendilion Clique is going to enter the battlefield. Philip will choose himself as Vendilion Clique enters, bottoms a Fatal Push, and draws a card. He then goes to his turn, untaps, draws. He goes to combat, swings in with the Vendilion Clique. Jörn goes down to 13. Philip plays a Bloodstained Mire and passes back to Jörn. Jörn draws. He plays an island as his land for turn. And attacks with the True Name Nemesis, so Philip goes down to 13. Philip fetches at the end of Jörn's turn with the Bloodstained Mire. Philip searches up an underground sea. He's then going to delve away his graveyard, casting a Dig Through Time. And in response, Jörn is casting a Price of Progress, which is a huge tempo swing in this match. If this resolves, Philip will lose 8 life, and Jörn goes down to 9. Wow. Yeah, this card got pointed for a reason recently. I'm all in favor of that. Philip is then going to resolve his Dig Through Time. Philip really needs an answer here for the True Name Nemesis. Philip then goes to his turn, untaps, draws a card. He swings in with the Vendilion Clique, and Jörn goes down to 6. Philip plays an island as his land for turn. Philip taps for 3 mana and pays 1 life to cast a Toxic Deluge, which is going to get rid of the True Name Nemesis. He then follows it up with a Deathratch Shaman. End of turn. Jörn uses an Abrade to kill the Deathratch Shaman, but Philip has the Mana Tithe, the counterspell nobody expects ever, countering the Abrade. Jörn goes to his turn, casts a Serum Vision, drawing a card, scrying 2. It's a Spell Pierce and a Goblin Rebel Master. He bottoms the Spell Pierce. He plays a Bloodstained Mire as his land for turn. Taps the Tenra for white mana to cast a Swords to Plowshares on the Deathratch Shaman. So Philip goes back to 4. Philip untaps and suspends an Ancestral Vision, passing back to Jörn. In his main phase, Jörn is casting a Lightning Helix, bringing Philip down to 1. Oh, sorry, that was end of turn. So Jörn untaps. And for 3 mana, cast a He plays a Prismatic Vista and then casts a Goblin Rebel Master. Philip tries to counter it with the Mana Drain, but Jörn has the Spell Snare, countering the Mana Drain. Jörn is then going to create a 1/1 Goblin token and attack Philip for lethal. So game number 1 goes to Jörn. Jörn's starting hand for game number 2 contains a Gaze of Sandrift, Delver of Secrets, Rockrun Triumph, Counterspell, Island. Philip's starting hand contains a Treasure Cruise, Darkslick Shores, Fable Passage, Batterskull, Mana Tithe, Narset, Part of Wales, and a Wasteland. Philip starts with a Fable Passage. And Jörn starts with a Delver of Secrets. End of turn, Philip cracks the Fable Passage. He finds the plains. Philip untaps, draws, plays a Darkslick Shores as the land for turn. Jörn untaps, reveals a mental misstep and flips his Delver in his upkeep. But Philip casts a Petty Theft and bounces the Delver back to Jörn's hand. Jörn then draws his card for turn. Plays a Rockrun Triumph and recasts his Delver of Secrets. He then passes back to Philip. Philip untaps, draws for turn. He plays a Wasteland and destroys the Triumph of Jörn. Back to Jörn's turn. He casts a Mental Note, milling himself for 2, drawing a card. He plays a Polluted Delta as his land for turn and swings in with the Delver. He's then cracking his Polluted Delta for a Volcanic Island and casts a Zurgo Bellstriker. But Philip counters the spell with a Mental Misstep. Jörn then passes to Philip. Philip draws. Plays a Swamp as his land for turn. And gives the turn back to Jörn. Jörn untaps, his Delver triggers. He reveals a Brainstorm. He then swings in for 3. Philip goes down to 16. And passes back to Philip. Philip draws. Plays a Celestial Colonnade as his land for turn. And passes back. Still EOT, Jörn casts a Brainstorm. He then goes to his turn, untaps, draws. He finally found the third land, which is a Secret Foundry. He shocks himself so it enters untapped. And he then goes to combat and swings in with the Delver. Back to Philip. Philip untaps. He draws. He plays a Flooded Strand as his land for turn. And for 3 mana, he attempts to cast a Narset, Porter of Wales. But Jörn counters it with a Memory Lapse. Jörn goes to his turn and immediately goes to combat, attacking Philip, who is going down to 10. End of turn, Philip fetches with the Flooded Strand, going down to 9. He finds a Breeding Pool, which will enter the battlefield tapped. Philip goes to his turn, draws. And casts a Deathrite Shaman. Jörn casts a Brazen Barrow in his end step, but Philip has the Mana Tithe once again. Absolutely control all-star. But Philip casts his own Brazen Barrow, still at the end of his turn. Jörn untaps, plays his own Flooded Strand. He's then going to cast Arc Trail, killing both the Deathrite Shaman and the Brazen Borrower, which is absolutely brutal at this point. He then goes to combat, swings in for another 3 damage. Philip goes down to 6. Philip untaps, draws. Philip delves away his whole graveyard to cast a treasure cruise. But Jörn fetches in response with the Flooded Strand, finding an untapped blue source and casting a counterspell. Philip plays a Godless Shrine untapped, losing another 2 life to cast a Better Skull, which might get him back into this game if the Germ token can connect with the lifelink. Jörn untaps, draws. He swings in with the insect and has a Fog Bolt, killing Philip, winning 2-0 in round number 3. So Jörn and Sven will both be in the finals.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Congratulations again to Sven, winning with his Thassa's Breach deck, which is super impressive. You can find the decklist down in the comments below, or even more decklists of the tournament on our Facebook page. If you liked what you saw, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing to this channel, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye!